Okay, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about contract verbs and elision. These are things that all students of ancient Greek eventually have to deal with. They are also important in modern Greek as well. Um, we don't usually get too detailed in our lessons with kids, but they are important to know, especially if you wanted to sound like a native speaker. Contract verbs essentially help Greek achieve this satisfying formula of consonant vowel, which is probably how Greek was originally spoken. So when you have a verb that has two vowels together, two distinct syllables, something like agapao, that ao will contract into one sound. So if we take a look here at this word, timao, which means I respect or I esteem, it's where we get words like Timothy from, one who values or respects God. Timao, timais, timai, timaumen, timaete, timausin. Only the first of these would be used by a modern speaker. But there was a point in ancient Greek when these were the common verb forms. But it's rather inconvenient to use them. If you look at, for example, timais, you value or you esteem, you have alpha, one vowel sound, and then epsilon iota, another vowel sound. Two of them together isn't really going to make it easy to speak quickly and clearly. So, what will happen is these will contract. These vowel clusters here will be scrunched into their contracted forms. So timao will become timo. The omega is a stronger vowel. It's a long vowel. It's always long. That's why it's called the omega as opposed to the omicron, which is always weak. And the little squiggly mark that's there above it, and you can see the contracted vowel clusters here. The squiggly mark above the omega, it should be above all of them, but I've neglected it in the second one on the right side, actually represents that alpha. So that alpha lost in the vowel battle to the omega. The omega essentially ripped its band uniform, took the alpha and made a little hat out of it. This is called a circumflex or a perispomenon. In Greek, we call it a perispomeni. And it is important because it tells us that this verb used to be conjugated a different way. Now, in modern Greek, the first person forms, timao and timo, agapao, agapo, forao, foro, both are still used. It's the lower five that are rarely used. Okay, if we look at the next one, the alpha epsilon iota timais, what happens here is the alpha is kept. This is in the stem, and there should be a circumflex there which is missing. That's where the epsilon goes. The epsilon becomes a circumflex above the alpha, and the iota, because we have to remember it was there, uh, gets becomes what's called υπεγεγραμμένη, the iota subscript. So anytime you see that little mark, it only goes under very few letters. Alpha, omega, and eta actually are the only ones that can have it. Um, and you can see all throughout the right side, you've got the perispomenon, the circumflex, or the subscript. So this is what happens to vowels. Some of them really do take a beating. And if you don't already feel sorry for vowels, there's something else that happens to them called elision. Now, elision is a very common phenomenon in any form of Greek. Actually, it's still um, you can still hear it in everyday Greek if you were to go to Cyprus or Greece. Um, People use it without even realizing it. What happens is when we have two words, one that ends with a vowel and the second that begins with one of those vowels will be elided. It'll essentially be removed, it'll be replaced with an apostrophe. So if I just read the text here, if a word ends in a short vowel, it may be elided when the next word begins with a vowel. Now the letters that you see there, phi, paradigmatos chari, this just means for example, or exempla gratis. So we have these two words here, alaidu. Now, this, by the way, means but look or behold. Um, the part that's highlighted here in the red box, the alpha and the iota, this is what we don't like. That ai, alaidu. What we'd like to do is get rid of one of them and come up with something that's easier to say quickly. So what'll happen is the second alpha in Allah gets elided as a result of coming into contact with a vowel. There's no consonant there to serve as a barrier between them, and instead of Allah idu, we get alidu, alidu, 3 syllables, as opposed to alaidu, 4 syllables, and it's a little difficult to say because you have to include those vowels. A slightly more complicated example would be something like this. If the following word begins with an aspirated vowel, I'll talk about that in a moment, the consonant from the first word is also elided. Paradigmatos chari. Well, we've got here this word apoelados. Now, there's a funny little mark next to the epsilon. That's called a rough breathing mark. In Greek, it's called the dasia, the thing which drags or roughs up. And it actually represents a letter that is long gone in Greek. There was an H at one point in Greek, and this and the mark that you see on the left over the alpha are called the breathing marks. They have mostly fallen into disuse. I believe in 1981 they were officially removed from compulsory education. There are some people who still use them, and they are very important actually, especially in modern Greek, and it's impossible to really understand the spelling and the elision without knowing how these breathing marks work. So what happens is apoelados becomes afelados. So this is weird. How does that P become a phi? Well, let's take a look. We have this rough breathing mark, which remember was an H. Okay, and there's the H, and we have a P there. P obviously just is the letter P in English, it's the same. So when you put a P and an H together, you get PH, okay, which create the phi. And this is one of the reasons why no Greek word with a f sound should ever have an F in it. With the exception of words like fantasy or fantastic or something like that, anything related to that word, all of your phi words should be spelled with a PH in English. This includes names like Sophia. Sophia, spelled Sofia, is a Latinized spelling. If we followed the rules here of transliterating the Greek into English, we would convert the phi into a ph. So afelados, the phi comes from the combination of the p and the breathing mark, and the omicron is elided because the next letter is an epsilon. So instead of apoelados, or if you want the Erasmian pronunciation, apohelados, which is really problematic. Apoelados, so that's 5 syllables, you get afelados. And from that phi to the epsilon, you have a nice, easy transition. 2 words now sound like one. Let's take a look at another example. Okay, let's look at a few more examples here. Here we have kata imeran. Kata imeran, again, At the end of the first word, we've got a vowel. At the beginning of the second, we have another vowel, which tells us there's probably going to be elision here. In addition to the elision, though, the elimination of a vowel, we have a daf in kata, and we have a rough breathing mark, a dasia, over the ita. Those are going to blend. So just the familiar pattern again that we have in English, T and H equal th. By the way, all of those, the THs, the CHs, the PHs, all of these can be traced back to Greek. Um, these were ways of representing sounds before any kind of elision, any kind of blending happened. So anyway, so kata imeran, the T and the H will form a theta, which you see there, and we wind up with kathimeran, which many modern Greeks will just pronounce as kathemera, every day, meaning every day or according to the day. Okay, so that this word kathemera is just a product of a couple of different processes, including elision. If we look on the right side again, kata olu, not very easy to say. And we have a similar setup here. The alpha and the omicron are going to clash. The alpha is not going to survive it because of elision. So the omicron will prevail, but we have a taf there in kata. And we have a rough breathing, a dasia, over the first omicron. So we are again going to get this combination, this taf plus the breathing mark equal th, and there's our theta, katholu. Now, katholu, to anybody who speaks modern Greek, should sound familiar. We usually use it for not at all or completely. Um, and you'll get from this the word catholiko, on the whole or throughout the whole, which is actually where we get the word Catholic. Many people say that Catholic means universal. If we were to be very technical, it means throughout the whole body of something. It could be completely close enough to universal for our purposes. So there you go. That's all I have to say about elision and contract verbs. So think of your vowels. Please take care of them. Be nice to them. Tell them they're nice vowels. Tell them they're pretty vowels. And that's all for today. Isto é Panidin.